Towards the close of the year 2024, the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry in Kenya made a troubling announcement that sent shockwaves through the environmental community. Environmentalists and climate advocates expressed deep concern over a decision they viewed as a significant setback for environmental conservation and the sustainable management of the country's invaluable natural resources. The announcement marked the closure and dissolution of the Kenya Water Towers Agency, an organization that had served the nation for nearly 12 years. This agency played a vital role in protecting and restoring the country's critical water towers ecosystems that are essential for water supply, biodiversity, and climate resilience. The decision was ultimately overseen by Environment Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale, who had faced criticism for multiple previous attempts to address the agency's challenges. The news left many questioning the future of Kenya's environmental stewardship and the protection of its natural heritage. To explain himself, CS Duale gave 4 reasons for the Kenya Water Towers Agency's closure.
You know, Kenya Water Towers Agency was created through a Gazette notice, I think in 2012 by President Kibaki. So by 2022, 10 years, it expired. So there was not sitting on any legal framework. Then when this administration came in, they were given 1-year extension. And that 1-year extension ended in January this year. So I don't know what happened, why they were waiting for me. So when I came here, I found an agency which was not sitting pretty well legally. That's number 1. Number 2, Kenya Water Agency's role was more of duplication with Kenya Forest Service, with part of it Kenya, with Carefree, with the NEMA, because it was about even wetlands. NEMA has a whole department on wetlands. So I wrote to the head of public service, I wrote to the AG, and I said, what do we do? And we decided, because there are over, I think, 200 plus, I don't have the number, agencies and parastatals in our country that consume over 200 billion shillings annually, and some of them, their roles are devolved. They're supposed to wind up and send their staff to devolved units, because if they're dealing with water, water is devolved. Some of them, their roles are duplications with other agencies. And it was a cabinet decision that we cannot pump 200 billion every year.
NTV Investigates has spent months investigating the closure of the Kenya Water Towers Agency, and we tell you why there is more to it than meets the eye.
What is special about water towers that we have more than 100 institutions that were created by the Gazette notice or presidential order, that it should be the first one to go very quickly, yet the others are justified to exist?
My name is Ibrahim Karanja. The Kenya Water Towers Agency was established in 2012 in response to the pressing need for adequate protection, rehabilitation, and sustainable management of the vital water towers in Kenya. These water towers are not just geographical features. They are rich ecosystems teeming with diverse flora and fauna that significantly maintain ecological balance. They are essential to various socio-economic activities, including agriculture, which relies on this region's water and soil health, tourism that draws visitors to their stunning landscapes, and hydroelectric power generation that supports the nation's energy needs. The agency was formed out of a growing concern over the alarming degradation of these critical water towers, with particular emphasis on the Mau Forest Complex, one of the country's most important and vulnerable areas. In 2008, the Kenyan government recognized the threats posed by deforestation, land degradation and climate change to these vital ecosystems and formed a task force to assess the situation and recommend solutions. Following the task force's recommendations, an interim coordinating secretariat was created in 2009, which laid the groundwork for the establishment of the Kenya Water Towers Agency, which was formally constituted through Kenya Gazette Supplement number 27 on April 20th, 2012. Dr. Isaac KaluaGreen was the inaugural chairperson of the KWTA board, appointed by then-President Mwai Kibaki.
The Kenya Water Towers, once it was established, and I remember very well the team that sat to create that kind of institution, they had reached a point where they realized, hey, there is a void, particularly in, I would call them 4 areas. One would be in protection and ensuring the restoration of our water towers. That was very clear. The second one was on matters of coordinating stakeholders, because the field has got so many stakeholders, everyone doing this and that. A lot of funding coming into the country for one effort, it is replicated in a different one, every institution trying to do different things. The third one, which was also very interesting, was the holistic ecosystem management, so that you are not just dealing with the trees and forests, not just the water and everything else. And that holistic approach is one thing that brought this together. And then the fourth one is the climate regulation and community livelihoods, because you cannot manage these issues without a proper coordinated regulation of these processes in a manner that makes sense to the public. Otherwise, you'll be doing it just by yourself.
The agency was mandated to coordinate efforts to conserve water towers, ensure their sustainable management, and promote community involvement in conservation efforts. This aligning with Kenya's Vision 2030 development agenda, which emphasizes sustainable resource management as a critical pillar for national development.
It is the only organization that since independence had an opportunity to report to Parliament quarterly. During my stay as the chairperson of the organization, we reported regularly, every quarter, on status of water towers, which one has improved, which one has gone down, how the community is being affected, everything that went around there, so that the legislators would understand what is happening, so that the information they are, the decisions they are making in terms of policy make sense and resonate to what was on the ground. It is the only institution that would also share data that would be so important and had the authority to meet up, and the reports would be shared with the president on a regular basis. Recommendations that were so profound. Talking about Mau, I remember Makalia Falls, where we had to get people out in a very understanding manner and got people to bring back the title deeds that they had been given out of an excision that was wrongly done. And the team worked efficiently to bring the people together so that they can surrender voluntarily the title deeds. This was not going to be possible without the institution and the setup, the foundation that led to the information of creating Kenya Water Towers Agency.
The Kenya Water Towers play a crucial role in the country. They support biodiversity, to mean that they are home to diverse flora and fauna and provide essential ecosystem services. They also have economic contributions, which is that they support agriculture, tourism and energy production, significantly contributing to the national economy. And they are involved in climate regulation by helping mitigate climate impacts by regulating water flow and maintaining ecological balance.
In 2018, because I served there for 2 terms, in 2018, the institution looked at various activities. First of all, we noticed that Kenya is said to be having 5 water towers. And the question was, how can a country the size of Kenya, with the number of people that it has, have 5 water towers that are gazetted? And the team, in its wisdom, hired the services of DRSRS, the institution that is charged with the responsibility of understanding the entire space. And we moved on to gazette a further 18 water towers. So it moved from 5 water towers, the big 5, into 18 water towers. And we picked even smaller forests that were looked at not just as forest, but water towers. We then moved to the next level, which was identifying even further. By the time I was leaving the Kenya water towers, Kenya was supposed, because we had identified water towers, we identified about 140 water towers. I believe by now there are about 180 water towers across the country, so that we work towards protecting these spaces, so that we work towards ensuring that people understand the importance of all this, so that we can have our water, so that we can make sure that our crops are growing, so that we can ensure that our country's economic value is much higher than what we had at this specific time.
When the agency was folded up, many were concerned, especially since President William Ruto himself has expressed his desire for environmental conservation. So passionate has the head of state been that he even began the national drive to plant 15 billion trees by the year 2032.
Kenya, for example, is 80% arid and semi-arid. Therefore, we don't have much of rain, but I bet you we have enough water. And so we have decided as a country that we need to make sure that our water towers, our wetlands are protected so that we can use them to collect, harvest, store enough water to assist us manage our food security requirements. And it is the reason why we made a conscious decision that we are going to plant 15 billion trees to protect our wetlands and to protect our water towers.
And the Kenya Water Towers Agency was assigned a role to play towards the achievement of this goal.
My responsibility is to plant 500,000 hectares of trees within the water towers. But it's a responsibility that by the year 2032, my state parastatal will have actually done that. Out of that still, we need 150,000 hectares to be planted bamboo.
Okay.
Which is good for the riparian.
This is within your department?
That's within.
Kenya has had so many challenges over the years on matters of environmental protection, affected even deeper by the climate change crisis and a lot that come out of it. Livelihoods have been lost in this country. We are getting to a position where we do not have sufficient water that can run our country in the best way that we should. And where there is such situation, we are not reaching out to deal and manage it diligently so that it is in a sustainable process. We are a country that is suffering out of lack of sufficient food, hence introducing importation of food that we could easily produce locally. So indeed, we have a challenge. And the underlying challenge is one that we need every institution to play their role, because it is a collective approach that we need to do this.
So why would the government shut down the agency? Environmentalists say that duplication of roles, as cited by CS Duale, is a weak argument because even during the establishment of the KWTA in 2012, the cited overlapping agencies such as the Kenya Forest Service, KFS, the Kenya Forestry Research Institute, KEFRI, and the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, still existed, but failed to stop the wanton destruction of critical water towers such as the Mau East Complex.
The purpose for coordination is very clear because the efforts that are being done, great effort being done by Kenya Forest Service, are very distinct. They have been there. Efforts that's done by Ministry of Water are very clear. It is true that there may be overlapping institutions and activities, but that does not take away the coordination role. In fact, the institution should be a regulator in the best way possible. Anyone dreaming to bring out this institution can only be out of evil, most evil intentions.
At the beginning of this special report, CS Duale argued that the legal instrument that established the agency had lapsed, leaving it without sound legal standing and having to be dissolved. However, this statement contradicts a letter from the government's chief legal advisor, Attorney General Dorcas Oduor, dated October 4th, 2024. The letter was a response to Duale's own letter in which he sought advice from the Attorney General on the very question of the legal standing of the KWTA. This is what the Attorney General's letter advised CS Duale. I quote in part, "The Kenya Water Towers Agency maintains the status of a state corporation pending the determination of the appeal in the Supreme Court, specifically on the provisions of Section 89 of the Finance Act 2023. End of quote. From this, it was therefore clear that the legal status of the agency was not the problem. NTV has compiled a series of complaints to the Public Service Commission from workers at the agency. We can now reveal the covert yet desperate attempts to dismantle the agency and with it bury significant accountability concerns. Our investigations reveal glaring accountability gaps which attracted inquiries by Auditor General Nancy Gathungu. There are also leads suggesting an attempted compromise of a parliamentary committee and efforts to obstruct investigations by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. The first piece of evidence comes from the performance audit report on the conservation of water towers in Kenya, conducted by the Kenya Water Towers Agency and released by the Office of the Auditor General in September 2023. This report has since caught the attention of Kenya's anti-graft body, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Key among concerning elements in the report is a national bamboo demonstration site situated in the Kaptagat forest block of the Elgeyo Hills Water Towers.
Kenya Water Towers is conducting a bamboo investment and commercialization project in this area of Kaptagat. Because bamboo has a lot of benefits, both ecological and economic. It enhances the water levels, but also it grows faster. So we are offering economic benefits, but our main mandate is to conserve the Elgeyo Hills water towers.
So in the long run, after the demo site has been established, the communities will know which species is viable, and now we will come into a scenario of an outgrower scheme. An outgrower scheme meaning we are trying to expand the acreage that we will have for the bamboo factory. The bamboo factory requires up to 5,000 hectares of bamboo before even the factory can be established. So when we have established this hectare through the outgrower scheme, the communities will now supply to the factory, and now other products can be produced from here.
This is a national demo site that other counties will come to benchmark.
Furaha yangu ni kuwa tumeanza hii, wacha tushikane, tutengeneze nurseries, bei ya hiyo bambu ishuke chini nursery kwa miaka ile ya kwanza, na hiyo factory nasema tuharakishe kwa eka moja, na hii imeandikwa na watu ya Water Towers. Ile pesa unaweza kupata kutoka bambu ilikuwa zaidi ya mahindi, ilikuwa zaidi ya fruits. I think the list is there. Bamboo is the highest income that unaweza kupata kutoka bamboo kwa sababu ya ikianza kuuzwa.
Immediately I left the organization, a process like the bamboo project, which was going to be most transformational. We had designed a project to fund 1,200 kilometers of the Tana and Athi River, the entire river from upstream to downstream. And we had designed a process that would be given to corporates, and they get some rebate so that they are funding and they are doing activities, and they are being given some tax advantages so that they are self-driven to do with communities. Every person who is along the river, they are supported to grow bamboo trees, to do environmental activities, to specifically grow food and be able to become villages that are economically viable. All that was crushed. The opportunity was given to Kenya breweries. They were told to do something that was not very clear. It was never even produced to the public. The suggestion was totally different. Funding was given to the organization. I am not sure what happened to the funding, because it happened to go to one water tower, which I loved, and this is Kaptagat. As to how it was managed, I am not sure.
Now, for any Kenyan in Nairobi or any other part of the country, news that the Kenya Water Tower Agency is being closed may just pass as any government undertaking that is normal and should not have any questions raised. But for you to understand why it is suspicious, the hurried way of closing the agency, then you may need to understand the workings of the Kenya Water Tower Agency and some of the projects they have been handling in the past couple of years. One of those projects is a national bamboo demonstration site that is in Kaptagat Forest Block in Elgeyo Marakwet County, and one that was officially launched, according to the plaque, by the Honorable Mohamed Elmi, who was by then the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Environment. It was launched on the Friday, the 19th of July, 2019. Now, this project gobbled up 147 million shillings to have a national bamboo planting site in the country. Today, nearly 5 years later, a site visit by NTV shows a completely different picture from what was intended to be the largest bamboo demonstration site in the country. There is no bamboo plantation or nurseries on site, nor is there any indication that there ever has been. Pockets of bamboo trees are seen scattered in the compound, and this one nursery is what remains of the national bamboo demonstration site. The agency, however, set up a fence around the site and put up a few structures which are currently occupied by officers of the Kenya Forest Service. There also is this water tank, and that is all that there is to see of a project that cost 148 million shillings. And this was well captured in the Auditor General's report. The Auditor General stated in her report that the Kenya Water Towers Agency undertook the establishment of a national bamboo growing demonstration center at Kaptagat Forest in Elgeyo Hills during the 2018-2019 fiscal year to promote bamboo commercialization among communities living adjacent to forests. The report further says that the site was to be used for production of bamboo seedlings and to also serve as a community learning center. However, The site was neglected and had minimal activity, despite the agency utilizing approximately 147.7 million Kenya shillings between the financial years 2017-2018 to 2021-2022 towards the establishment of the bamboo enterprise. In response to the queries by the Auditor General as captured in the report, KWTA's management stated that the audit did not fully consider all of the activities at the site. It noted that the site serves as a source of bamboo seedlings for several other projects, including the Cherangani Hills Water Towers, Ewaso Nyiro South, Mount Kenya, and the Aberdares. Additionally, the site is being used to implement the Lake Victoria Environment Management Project. This response, according to Auditor General Nancy Gathungu, did not adequately address the concerns raised and does not justify the lack of activity at the demonstration center itself, therefore highlighting potential mismanagement of funds and the failure of the bamboo project to achieve its intended objectives. Beyond the bamboo, yet another red flag the Auditor General raised was KWTA's inability to produce or at least cite any title deed belonging to Kenya Water Towers. The agency had on multiple occasions stated how it had recovered encroached water towers, yet with no evidence of titles. This, Dr. Isaac Kalua, who served as its first board chairperson, says has a history.
We even got to a point that we got a funding agency, UN agency, that said we are ready to fund the process of titling every water tower wherever it is. Money was available. We didn't even need government money. And the process was now to ensure that we get the title deed for every water tower. We even designed how safe it will be that this is a national asset and it's going to be placed at the National Treasury so that no one can ever access this documentation for the purpose of excising like we had done. It was going to be the ultimate safe and secure space for our national processes. Questions started moving on. I remember going to meet the Minister for Lands. We have funding to ensure that title deeds are given for what is called a forest and therefore a water tower, so that this can be given to the public. And I remember I met the Honorable Charity Ngilu. She was the Lands Minister. She looked at me straight in the eye. She told me, Isaac, you're my friend, but are you sure you want me to lose my job by ensuring that I give title deeds for water towers? I looked at her and she just invited me for a cup of water or tea in her office, which we enjoyed, and I knew that we were dealing with a bigger problem than what it is.
But even before the report by the Auditor General, the scandal, that is the 147.7 million shillings worth of national bamboo demonstration site, seemed to have been an open secret within the agency. On June 22, 2023, members of the board of the Kenya Water Towers Agency visited the site to confirm that what the management was telling them about the project's status on the ground was true. The board was by then led by former Sports Cabinet Secretary Rashid Echesa, who has since been moved from the KWTA. They were accompanied by CEO Professor Julius Tanui. Upon their visit and return to Nairobi, presumably shocked by what they saw on the ground, the Rashid Echesa-led board resolved to send Professor Julius Tanui on compulsory leave so as to thoroughly investigate the project in the CEO's absence. They directed that he hands over the office to another senior staff member of the agency who was to act in his absence. But what followed shocked many at the agency. The current Environment Principal Secretary, Dr. Festus Ngeno, overturned the decision and reinstated Tanui, stating that the matter could be resolved differently. But even before the dust about the botched compulsory leave of CEO Professor Tanui could settle, members of the board who were part of the decision to send him on leave as they investigated the matter were quickly ejected from the board within a span of 2 months, and new board members were installed. On the 16th of November 2023, PS Ngeno, through a letter, appointed former Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata to the board as his representative. About 8 days later, on the 23rd of November 2023, the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Energy, Alex Wachira, also replaced another board member with Dan Kithinji Marangu as his representative in the board. 4 days later, on the 27th of November 2023, John Orumoi was appointed into the board, this time representing the Principal Secretary in the National Treasury, Chris Kiptor. These replacements raised eyebrows since they coincided with the EACC investigations and the unresolved accountability questions at the time. On the 10th of November 2023, just few days before the board replacements, the EACC had already sent its first letter to Professor Julius Tanui, keen on finding out more details about the National Bamboo Demonstration Site. The letter referenced EACC 6/8/5 Volume 4 Brackets 154 was triggered by findings of the Auditor General's report that we earlier cited. It was only responded to close to a month later through a letter referenced KWTA/EACC/96 Volume 1/42 dated 4th December 2023, days after majority of the board members had been replaced. It is within this new board that it is said the idea to dissolve the agency was floated. But there was a little problem. There are procedures to shutting down such an agency, and it could not just happen with a stroke of the pen. A procedure like that required a cabinet ratification of the dissolution, followed by the dissolution of the board. So they went back to the Legal Notice 27 of 2012 that established the Kenya Water Towers Agency and Section 21 of the Statutory Instruments Act that called for its dissolution after 10 years of operations. This Section 21 is eventually what was used to shut down the agency, despite the fact that Section 21 of the Statutory Instruments Act had been abolished by the Finance Act of 2023, and that the Finance Act 2023 is in fact still operational on the strength of an order by the Supreme Court.
There is no any other institution in Kenya that is mandated to report matters of environmental, a coordinated effort, and the status of our water towers apart from that institution. Ministry of Water and the institutions that are there, they are doing an excellent job on ensuring water is there. The approach, the wholesome approach, is only in one institution in this country as it is. It's painful. It's painful that people can think about that. Just because of messes that they have done, maybe money that is lost in the organization, and they would rather that the institution is closed so that they can survive. Shame. Shame. Kenya is greater than all of us. What is it that we are telling our children? Taking away water from them? Taking away the oxygen that we are talking about? Taking away the jobs and the opportunities for livelihoods? Shindwe.
On the 24th of May 2024, perhaps in an attempt to get him out of the line of fire about operations of the agency, PS Festus Ngeno seconded agency Chief Executive Professor Julius Tanui for nomination to serve in the African Union's Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy Directorate. A letter, reference number MEF/ADM/1 in our possession, by PS Festus Ngeno to his counterpart in the State Department of Foreign Affairs, Korir Sing'oei, seconded Professor Tanui to the position of Environment Specialist, Circular Economy and Pollution in the Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy Directorate, Environment Sector of the African Union. This was less than a month after a heated parliamentary session in Mombasa before the National Assembly's Environmental Committee, led by Nakuru Town East lawmaker David Gikaria, where both PS Festus Ngeno and CEO Professor Tanui were present and were at pains to explain the expenditures at the National Bamboo Demonstration Site in Kaptagat. The heated session before the Parliamentary Committee was immediately followed by an unexplained withdrawal of 8.88 million shillings from the agency's account number 116-961-17867 at Kenya Commercial Bank's Capitol Hill branch. 2.08 million shillings of these withdrawals were indicated to have been used for engagement with members of the National Assembly Forestry Regulatory Authority and were handled by two of the agency's employees. Then agency chairperson Rashid Echesa believed that these monies were meant to bribe the lawmakers to look the other way and even wrote to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to investigate the circumstances around its withdrawals. In yet another letter, dated the 5th of September 2024, following concerns by employees of the agency, the Public Service Commission wanted answers about the goings-on at the agency. Commission CEO Paul Fwamba says in the letter that employees had raised concerns that the agency was unprocedurally dissolved and that they had been unduly disadvantaged. In the complaint, it is alleged inter alia as follows: that they doubt that the legal instruments were followed for the dissolution of KWTA and all the State Corporations Advisory Committee (SCAC), and the Attorney General did not advise on the same, that as a result of the impugned dissolution of KWTA, they have been indiscriminately redeployed into various other state corporations and ministries. That via a letter dated 24th May 2024 addressed to the Principal Secretary, State Department of Foreign Affairs, and without the approval of the Commission, you unlawfully seconded Professor Julius Gordon Tanui, the CEO of KWTA, to the African Union to the position of Environmental Specialist, Circular Economy and Pollution, and that without the approval of the Commission, the staff of the agency are being seconded and or deployed to various public service institutions and ministries. NTV is also in possession of a different letter dated the 6th of August 2024, in which PS Ngeno irregularly and without the approval of the Public Service Commission or the knowledge of the head of public service redeployed staff of the agency to sister parastatals. 7 key employees were redeployed to the State Department of Forestry.
We're saying we're just sitting in the office, we're not doing anything. If there is no development budget, staffs must work. Staff must progress. I mean, you join the government or the private sector or do your business so that you grow. 2, I want to ask you, if there was no board, the board was removed. And I'm not the one who removes board, you know that. But more fundamentally, if the legally it has expired, I had no choice. Yes, and my interest was the staff, and the staff are extremely very happy because I think that decision, nobody could take it.
The statement by Duale, however, raises the question as to why the so-called happy employees would be the same ones writing protest letters about the dissolution of the agency and their controversial redeployment. On the 14th of August 2024, just 2 days after Duale took over the Ministry of Environment from his predecessor, Roselinda Soipan Tuya, he embarked on one of his initial orders of business. Convinced by an advisory and a visit from key members of the board, including board members, Duale wrote a letter stating that the agency had ceased to exist. However, days later, board chairperson Rashid Echesa sent a letter to Duale refuting the closure and citing the legal standing of the agency. This position by Echesa was later confirmed by Attorney General Dorcas Oduor in a letter we showed you earlier. Head of Public Service Felix Koskei, caught up in the chains of letters regarding the dissolution of the agency, also referred the dissenting factions to the Attorney General. Our attempts to have PS Ngeno and former CEO Tanui to go on record about these developments were futile. We wrote letters to their respective offices on the 12th of November 2024. The letters were stamped as received at the two offices on the 15th of November 2024, but have never been responded to date. We also tried to reach out to then board chairperson Rashida Chesa, the only man who apparently fought to save the agency, and our calls were unsuccessful. He has since been moved from the agency to now chair the National Council for Occupational Safety and Health, an appointment done towards the end of November 2024. As we waited for responses about what was by then a plan to dissolve the agency for over a month, the agency was ultimately dissolved, and an announcement made by the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change about the key accountability concerns raised by the Auditor General and being investigated by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. CS Duale had this to say.
Investigation will continue. I am sure you are aware. You can even be arrested after 20 years, after 10 years. So EACC will continue with the investigation until 147. And personally, I will write to EACC. I can assure you that investigation must continue. Those who are responsible, if they are found to have misappropriated public resources to the tune of 147, they must be dealt with. Under my leadership here, and everybody knows, we will not compromise integrity. So the file is not me. The file is with the right agency by law, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. So even if you retire today, if a public servant retires today, that will not close his file. So those who will be transferred to the ministry or to the agencies, if they are board members who have now left, if anybody will be found culpable in that 147 million public money which is under investigation, EACC and the DPP and the criminal justice system will do what they're supposed to do.
Meanwhile, things are drastically changing at some of the country's critical water towers. In the Mau, for instance, perhaps to take advantage of the gap, political leaders are reigniting the conversation of occupation of the forest by persons who had initially been evicted. This a sign of what may come in the coming days if conservationists and Kenyans at large do not keenly follow and observe the developments moving forward. Ibrahim Karanja, NTV.